In the intricate tapestry of life, it is often the moments of quietude that herald the most significant transformations. C.S. Lewis, a master at deciphering the human soul, believed that God rarely calls to us through the rumble of thunder, but prefers to whisper in the gentle breezes of our daily experiences. As we embark on this journey of discovery, let us seek those subtle signs that indicate the proximity of a divine intervention in our story. Guided by Lewis's insights, we will understand how these silent awakenings can trigger profound transformations in our spiritual walk. Amidst the relentless march of life, where days blend into an endless routine, there lies a hidden invitation to awaken. It is not in the clamor of great revelations that we find our decisive moments, but in the quiet corners of our existence, where the mundane meets the mystical. Lewis reminds us that God often chooses the whisper over the whirlwind to capture our attention and stir the depths of our souls. Reflect on the gentle nudge of a persistent thought, the constant echo of an unrealized dream, or the silent discontent pointing to realms beyond our reach. These are not mere fragments of our imagination, but possibly the first threads of a divine tapestry being woven into the fabric of our lives. Lewis would likely argue that our deepest awakenings often emerge from the simplest moments: the sunrise that evokes an unspoken longing, a phrase from a book that resonates deeply in our minds, or a conversation that leaves our spirit restless for something greater. Awakening, in the Lewisian sense, is the nascent realization that the visible world is merely a shadow of a more substantial reality that calls to us. It is the initial stirring of the heart that suggests our role in a grand narrative, a story written by God Himself. This awakening does not shout from the rooftops, but whispers in the silence of our being, inviting us to embark on a journey of discovery and transformation. By paying attention to these subtle signs, we begin to see our lives not as a series of random events, but as a symphony carefully orchestrated by the divine maestro. Every note, every pause plays a crucial role in the developing melody of our existence. The nature of this awakening is not a sudden illumination, but a gradual unveiling, where the scales fall from our eyes and we are invited to see the world, ourselves, and God in a new light. By embracing these silent awakenings, we open ourselves to the possibility of change, to the divine twists and turns that God weaves into our stories. For it is often in the gentle whisper of God's voice that we find the courage to let go of our old selves and assume the new roles He has written for us in His grand cosmic narrative. C.S. Lewis observed that hardships often prepare ordinary people for extraordinary destinies. This observation serves as a powerful reminder that our trials, though filled with discomfort, are not mere obstacles but crucibles for growth and transformation. In the shadow of suffering, we find not only the harshness of life, but also the potential for divine metamorphosis. For Lewis, suffering was like a megaphone that God uses to awaken a deaf world. It is in our moments of pain and adversity that we often become more receptive to change, more aware of our fragility, and more inclined to seek something beyond ourselves. This receptivity can become the fertile ground from which a new chapter of our story, written by God, begins to emerge. Consider the biblical story of Joseph, who faced betrayal, slavery, and imprisonment, only to be elevated to a position where he could save nations from famine. These challenges were not mere setbacks, but integral parts of a larger narrative that God was weaving. Like Joseph, we may discover that our deepest struggles are not detours, but essential paths to the destiny God has prepared for us. As we face our challenges, we are invited not to despair, but to persevere, with the understanding that our current trials may be the tools God uses to shape us into the characters we need to be for the next scene of our story. It is through suffering that we often acquire the wisdom, strength, and empathy necessary to embrace the roles God has designated for us. In this process, suffering reveals itself not only as a test of our endurance, but as a means by which God awakens the best within us. It calls us to transcend our limits and discover a greater purpose amid the pain. Thus, as we face our challenges with courage and faith, we recognize that each trial is an opportunity to grow and transform, aligning us more deeply with the grand divine plan for our lives. Suffering, then, can be seen as a sign that God is actively working in our lives, pruning us so that we can bear more fruit, just as a gardener tends to his plants. The pain of the pruning process is real, but so is the growth that follows. By embracing our difficulties with faith and courage, we allow God to turn our trials into triumphs, our pain into purpose. C.S. Lewis famously postulated, "If I find in myself desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, the only logical explanation is that I was made for another world." This profound insight sets the stage for our third topic, recognizing our deep and unmet longings as signs that we are destined for something greater, something beyond the mere physical realm. Lewis believed that our deepest desires, those that material pleasures cannot satisfy, are not mere whims of the human condition, but echoes of our true home calling us. These unmet desires, these whispers of something more, serve as indicators that our stories are meant to transcend the confines of this world, pointing to an eternal narrative crafted by the divine. When we experience moments of inexplicable longing, when beauty, love, or a sense of wonder awaken in us an insatiable hunger, we are feeling the pull of eternity in our hearts. These moments should not be dismissed as fleeting emotions, but recognized as signs of our participation in a larger divine story. This longing for more is a beacon, guiding us through the fog of routine and the ephemeral, toward the shores of a deeper spiritual truth. It invites us to explore the possibility that the restlessness we feel is a divine discontent planted within us, to lead us back to God, the source of all fulfillment. Lewis saw suffering and desire as two sides of the same spiritual coin. Both awaken us to a reality beyond our immediate understanding. Suffering humbles us, making us receptive to divine grace, while desire elevates us, calling us toward the fullness that can only be found in God. In this process, our lives become a continuous quest for meaning and connection, shaped by the careful hand of the Creator. Therefore, as we face our trials and recognize our deepest desires, we open our hearts to the possibility of transformation and find a path back to our true home. In our journey with God, these echoes of eternity call us to action, urging us to seek our place in the grand divine narrative. They remind us that we are not merely actors on a worldly stage, but eternal souls shaped for an eternal realm. As we attune our hearts to these divine whispers, we open ourselves to the transformative work God desires to accomplish in and through us. We begin to see our lives not as a series of disconnected events, but as a pilgrimage toward a divine horizon, where every longing finds its fulfillment, and every desire points us back to our Creator. C.S. Lewis had a special talent for recognizing the divine in the ordinary, often suggesting that what we perceive as mere coincidences are in fact the quiet workings of God in our lives. He famously stated, "Coincidences are God's way of remaining anonymous," hinting at the subtle way in which divine orchestration unfolds around us. This topic delves into the concept of providence and serendipitous coincidences, exploring how these unexpected encounters and seemingly random events can actually be signs that God is actively involved in our narrative, gently steering us towards his intended turns. Consider the serendipitous encounters that alter the course of our lives, the unforeseen opportunities that arise exactly when we need them, or the inexplicable timing of events that, in hindsight, fit together too perfectly to be mere coincidences. These moments, often overlooked or dismissed as luck, may very well be God's touches on the canvas of our existence. In Lewis's view, nothing in life is purely fortuitous. Every encounter, every event, is a brushstroke in the masterpiece God is creating. Our moments of serendipity, the encounters that seem so perfectly timed, are signs of a divine hand quietly guiding us. They remind us that we are part of a much larger story than we can imagine, a story written by the Creator himself, where every detail, no matter how insignificant it may seem, has its place and purpose. Therefore, as we navigate the routines of our daily lives, we are invited to be attentive to the divine whispers and touches, to recognize God's presence amid coincidences and improbable circumstances. By doing so, we open our hearts and minds to the wonder of God's providential work in our lives, seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary and the divine in the everyday. Thus, our journey transforms into a dance with the divine, where every step is guided by a loving and omnipotent hand, leading us ever closer to our true home. Lewis would argue that these coincidences are not random, but purposeful, meticulously woven into the fabric of our lives by a loving Creator. They serve as reminders that our stories are not solitary tales, but part of a grand interconnected narrative, where every character and every event plays a role in the unfolding divine drama. We are invited to look beyond the surface to perceive the deeper connections and the guiding hand of God in our journey. This perspective encourages us to trust in the flow of our lives, to remain open to the unexpected, and to find comfort in the knowledge that, even in chaos, there is hidden order, a divine plot in which we play a part. By embracing the providential nature of these happy coincidences, we allow ourselves to become more attuned to the possibilities that God places before us, more willing to follow the clues he provides, and more aware of the ongoing dialogue between our desires and his will. Drawing from the profound thought of C.S. Lewis, our fifth topic explores the transformative power of trusting in God, especially during times of uncertainty and change. Lewis often spoke of faith as a journey through shadowed valleys and sunlit peaks, with trust in God serving as our guiding light. Amid life's turbulence, a deep peace can envelop us, a stillness that defies the chaos of our circumstances. This peace, Lewis might argue, is a tangible sign of God's presence and a reminder of his promise to guide us through the storms. It is in the quiet of our hearts and the silent trust in God's sovereignty that we often find the strength to endure and the courage to embrace the unfolding chapters of our story. Lewis believed that faith is not an escape from reality, but a deeper immersion into it. True faith enables us to see beyond appearances, to recognize God's hand at work in all things, even in difficulties and uncertainties. When we fully trust in God, we allow him to transform our trials into opportunities for growth and our fear into renewed faith. This kind of trust calls us to surrender our anxieties and worries to God, believing that he has a purpose for every circumstance we face. Like a skilled author, writing each line with intention, God weaves the joys and sorrows of our lives into a cohesive narrative aimed at our greater good. Therefore, as we face moments of uncertainty, we are invited to keep our hearts open and our minds receptive to divine direction, knowing that He is always with us, guiding us with wisdom and love. Ultimately, trust in God leads us to a deeper understanding of our role in creation. We are not merely passive observers, but active participants in the great story God is telling. Every decision to trust, every act of faith, contributes to the symphony of our lives, which, in the end, echoes the glory of our Creator. As we live with this trust, we discover true peace and purpose, recognizing that, although our lives may be unpredictable, we are secure in the hands of a God who knows exactly where we are and where we are going. This tranquility does not arise from the absence of problems, but from a constant trust in the one who holds our days in his hands. It is a peace that, as Lewis would say, surpasses all understanding, a serene certainty that no matter how the plot unfolds, the author of our faith is with us, guiding every step. Embracing this quiet confidence involves surrendering our need for control, releasing our grip on the pen with which we try to write our own stories. It means finding rest in the knowledge that, although we may not understand every twist and turn, there is a purpose in every line, a reason for every pause. In this posture of trust, we open ourselves to the transformative work God desires to do within us. We allow Him to write His will into our lives, leading us not only to a place of peace amid the storm, but also to a deeper relationship with Him. It is here, in the quiet of trust, that we are truly prepared for the changes God is weaving into our narrative. In the spirit of C.S. Lewis, we explore suffering, longing, providence, and trust, each path revealing signs that God is at work, reshaping our story. Lewis saw the spiritual journey as a dance between the human and the divine, where our weaknesses are shaped by God's strength and our fears transformed into faith. In pain, we find an opportunity to grow. In longing, a call to the eternal. In coincidences, the invisible hand of God. And in trust, a surrender that brings us closer to the heart of the Creator. Embracing this dance means recognizing that every step, every stumble, is part of a larger plan. By yielding to the divine will, we find freedom and joy, even in adversity. Trusting in God is not mere passive acceptance, but an active surrender that transforms us and aligns us with the divine narrative. Thus, as we follow this journey, we are invited to hear God's whispers in our daily lives, to see beauty and order amid chaos, and to find courage and peace in the certainty of His presence. Every challenge becomes an opportunity for growth, every longing a reminder of our true home, and every coincidence a sign that we are being guided by a loving hand. In the end, we discover that true peace is not found in the absence of storms, but in the constant presence of God, who guides and sustains us every step of the way. By trusting in Him, we allow Him to write our story, transforming and shaping us according to His perfect plan. And so, our lives become a living expression of God's glory, a symphony of faith, hope, and love, resounding eternally.